Evening. I'd like to call the Gurnee Village Board regular meeting of January 9th, 2017 to order. Roll call, please, Andy.
Wilson. Here. Ross. Here. Gardner. Thorstenson.
Here.
Thomas.
Present.
Good.
Here.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Happy New Year. And I'm still on Florida time and brain and temperature, but I did come back. And I thought about you guys while I was down there. I thought, wouldn't it be nice to just pick up Village Hall and take everybody in it and just plop it down in Florida? We'd all be so happy. Gorgeous weather the whole week. All right, but first off is public comment. Just state your name for the record.
Leonard Petrovic, 3712 Grove. On the corner by my house, the guy has a truck parked on his driveway almost to the edge of the road on Belle Plaine. And when I come up to the intersection on Grove, I can't see if there's any cars coming unless I pull out almost to the middle of the intersection. And I have it here if you want to see.
Okay. Oh, it's on your phone. I thought you had a picture.
Okay, I'm stopping at my stop sign
Sure.
on Grove Avenue, Magnolia.
Is that looking,
And
that's looking
I'm
south?
looking north,
That's
and I
looking
can't
north?
see, and I have to do this to see out in the middle of the intersection. I've had code enforcement, I told them about it. I had a policeman in the area for a different reason, I had him check it out, and one of these days, I'm gonna get hit.
I agree. It's hard to see.
And I'm
So
gonna get hurt or something.
we don't want you to get hurt.
So, you know, obviously, he's parked beyond his lot line,
Yeah.
and so that's village.
All right. Patrick will take
Look
care of
into
it. Look into it. Thank you. Oh, you got one other.
What is the status on that garage in my neighborhood that running the business, 1424 Magnolia? He's working tonight.
David?
We have cited him on several occasions for commercial vehicles on the property. I believe all the commercial vehicles, the semis and the larger trucks have been removed from the property, as well as the commercial trailer. We've not been able to prove conclusively that he's operating a business there, that he's not working on his own vehicles. We're continuing to monitor the property and do the things that we can do to clean it up.
Okay.
Okay, he's obviously running a business. Is he paying sales tax to the village on the
Well-
parts that he sells for the parts that he repairs the vehicles? Do you know?
Well, there's no business license there, so we would have no way of keeping
Because I
track
called the
of that.
state about, does he pay state income tax or state sales tax? And they asked me his tax number. You don't get a tax number unless you had a business
If he
license,
applied
right?
for a business license,
So-
which then we would have conclusive evidence he's operating a business that he's
Well,
not supposed to.
there's lights on in that garage right now, just before I came here. He's working. He works there all the time.
The state issues the sales tax numbers and collects the sales tax, not the village. So the first step would be, I mean, if he's going to remit
Can you
sales
speak up?
tax, that's
It's hard to
state.
hear.
The state issues the sales tax ID numbers and collects the sales tax, not the village.
Okay. Well, but anyway, this, I first mentioned it in March, and he's still in business. So, you know, come on. He's running a business. In fact, one neighbor of mine went because he has a car hauler, and this guy pulled in there one time and said, "Hey, you got a car hauler. If I'd have to have a vehicle towed or hauled, can you do it? Call me anytime." He's in business. And everybody in the neighborhood, I'm sure, is aware of it. Their vehicles are all over the place.
All right.
So
David,
I'll leave it up to you.
thank you. It's
Thank
on
you.
David's radar. Okay, any other public comment? And our one public just left. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to approval of the consent agenda as presented.
So
Do I have a
moved.
motion? Motion by trustee Balmas.
Second.
Second by trustee Wilson. Roll call, please, Andy.
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Motion carries. Patrick, please read the consent agenda into the record.
Item number 1, approval of the minutes from the December 19, 2016 meeting. Item number 2, approval of a contract extension with TKG Sweeping and Service, Inc. for 2017 street sweeping services at a cost of $29 per curb mile, annual contract not to exceed $62,000. Item number 3, approval of contract extension with Giglio Landscape Contractors for 2017 landscape mowing services at 2011 price, annual contract not to exceed $85,790. Item number 4, approval of setting a bid date of February 14th, 2017 for the Welton Plaza paver installation project. Item number 5, approval of payroll for period ending December 24th, 2016 in the amount of $797,530.33. Item number 6, approval of payroll transfer journal for period ending December 24th, 2016 in the amount of $787,625.52. Item number 7, approval of bills for period ending January 9th, 2017 in the amount of $531,420.01.
Thank you, Patrick. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read into the record? Motion by trustee Ross, second by trustee Balmas. Roll call, please, Andy.
Aye.
Aye. Yes. Aye.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is petitions and communications. First one is our approval of the proclamation designating January 16th, 2017 as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the village of Gurnee. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 15th, 1929, and has made a lasting impression as a key leader in the American Civil Rights Movement during the 1950s and 60s. And Dr. King's outstanding leadership, inspiring speeches, and diligent efforts on behalf of our nation's at-risk and minority population have encouraged millions of Americans to share his dream of civil equality and to bring this dream closer to reality. And Dr. King promoted nonviolence and compassion, and his followers of all races and creeds rallied around him and his vision for universal equality, camaraderie, and peace, which we continue to strive for today in our homes and communities. And Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day honors Dr. King's legacy each year in January and focuses on bringing people together to break down the barriers that have divided us as a nation. And the Village of Gurnee continues its commitment to the elimination of racism and all forms of discrimination, as well as the development of an inclusive society for all people. Now, therefore, I, Christina Kavarik, Mayor of the Village of Gurnee, do hereby proclaim January 16th, 2017 to be Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the Village of Gurnee. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Motion by trustee Thorstensen.
Second.
Motion by trustee Ross. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. It will be Dr. Martin Luther King Day. Okay, that's all our petitions and communications, so we're going to move on to reports. And Brian and Scott are going to walk us through a capital plan after an introduction by Pat.
Sure. So last year, Brian and Scott put in a lot of hard work as far as getting the multi-year capital plan document together. Got together again this year with the departments, looked at what we had in last year, and then updated that. So the document format is laid out in a similar fashion to last year. Just went through and updated the numbers. So Scott and Brian are going to run through that tonight for you here. This is just a draft, so it will be included when we get to the formal budget, and you'll vote on it at that time. So anything that you see that you believe needs to be tweaked, we've got time between now and when we start talking about the budget, which will be early March. But to get this thing rolling here, we're going to kick off the capital plan, and I'll turn it over to Brian and Scott.
All right, thank you, Pat. As Pat mentioned, included in the packet was a draft document The document includes 8 sections and an appendix that walks through executive summary, a funding summary, and then the major infrastructure systems. From a funding strategy standpoint, the village is primarily pay-as-you-go. That is important given our reliance on economically sensitive revenues. It gives us options in the event of an economic downturn. With the one exception of that is we do have a dedicated revenue source in the general capital fund, and that is the home rule sales tax from a couple years ago, and that's the primary funding source for the transportation and non-water and sewer assets plan. We also, last year, I believe it was, we put in place a 5-year rate plan for water and sewer that ramps up capital funding to the levels that we had talked about in the Baxter-Woodman study back in 2011, 2012. Included in the plan, it does include a $500,000 annual transfer from the general fund of surpluses. Without that, we would need to make adjustments to the plan just so everybody's aware of that. And also during the forecast discussion, we had talked about using some expiring debt to dedicate some of that towards capital. Some that came off this year and then next year. And then we'll talk more about when the pool comes off in 2021. Although that's not village debt, we do contribute to the debt service on that. This chart shows fiscal year 18 proposed capital plan by system. As you can see, the transportation system is the largest at $4.86 million, or about 42.5%. Water and sewer at just over $3 million, or about 26%, and vehicles and equipment at almost $3 million, or about 25%, and then stormwater management and building improvements make up the remainder. Again, just proposed for fiscal year 18 right now as laid out in the document. Excuse me. Over the 5-year plan period, you can see the transportation system remains the largest expenditure at $26.8 million, or about 47%. Water and sewer at $15 million, or about 27%. Vehicles and equipment, about $12 million, or 21%, and then $2.5 million on building improvements and stormwater management. It is important to note that the water and sewer system here includes roughly $6 million for the Knowles Road Water Tower that we had talked about in conjunction with an IEPA loan, a fairly low interest IEPA loan. We do have a lot of options to be able to reduce the amount that we actually borrow, and we can certainly, when we get there, look at a combination of surpluses, fund balance, expiring debt service, things like that. That'll help us do that. That conversation, actually, the loan aligns pretty well with next year's long-term planning, so we'll have some more focus on where we finish this year and be able to present some options to lower that amount. Where the funding comes from a fund standpoint, this chart shows the breakdown of fiscal year 18. Again, majority is general government or non-water and sewer assets in the capital fund, about $6.3 million, or 55%, followed by water and sewer at $3.8 million, or 33%. MFT, again, restricted source here, about $850,000 annually, 7.4%. And then included in the plan was the 911 pass-through fund with the establishment of the new joint ETSB, and we set that level at $500,000 this year. I'm assuming there's going to be some costs incurred with bringing our partners on for a dispatch. Over the 5-year term, same chart, general capital makes up about $33 million, or 58%. Again, that's non-water and sewer assets. On the water and sewer side, about 17.4 million, or about 31%. MFT, 4.3 million, or about 7.5%. And then again, the 911 fund assumes $500,000 in that first year as we incur those costs, and then $350,000 after that, $350,000 after that through the forecast period. With that, I will turn it over to Village Engineer Drabicki.
We'll start with the transportation system. As you're aware, we have 2 components to the system. One is the vehicle payments, and the second component is pedestrian payments. Both are included in the capital plan. Our approach with this entire system is to improve the level of service. We are recommending an annual roadway rehab of about 6 miles to improve about 6 miles of streets. A total of 120 miles in the village of Gurnee. You divide that out, it's about a 20-year recurrence interval for resurfacing or new pavement on a roadway. Given the climate that we live in and the location that we're at, 20 years is about appropriate for where we're at. We're starting to see life cycles that kind of align with that as well, and I'll get into that a little bit here shortly. In the strategic plan that was recently completed, the community spoke and they indicated they want to see an increased investment in pedestrian and facilities as well. So you'll see us starting to push pedestrian improvements in the new capital plan a little more aggressively. This past year, as you're aware, we got the Route 21 sidewalk completed. And for the upcoming year, we do have plans for additional improvements as well as maintaining our existing sidewalk network. For the roadways themselves, in fiscal 18 and 19, we do have detailed streets where we're actually going, so you can kind of look ahead a year and see where we're going to be going in the next year and a half. We don't really go into detail beyond that. We have an idea of where we're going to go, but looking 3 years out is just a little bit too much for us to feel comfortable in presenting that to you in a very detailed document because our needs will change on a regular basis. So we like to keep the 2 years dialed in, and beyond that, we're going to kind of keep it vague. This is a current map of the pavement condition index. This survey of pavement conditions was completed in November of this past year by a subcontractor by the name of Infrastructure Management Systems. And they basically go through the entire village with a laser truck, and they go out through and basically count cracks and rate distresses on the entire community roadway network. The redder colors are not great, and the bluer and yellow and green colors are better. So as you can see here, we have significant clusters of good pavements. We have been working out of Ravinia Woods in recent history. We've been working out of Stonebrook in recent history. We've got country trails. We've been working out in here, and you can see where we're making good progress in some of those subdivisions. On the east side of town, as you know, we've invested very heavily in Belle Plaine and Magnolia Avenues in the last couple of years as well, and we're going to continue to do so. So this map helps guide where we go with our roadway program. It is not a be-all and end-all. It doesn't tell us exactly where we have to go, but it tells staff, hey, start looking into these areas where future needs are being identified. So once we get into the poor conditions, which is the PCIs of about 60, we start getting those roads on our radar to kind of get an idea of where we're going to be going in the coming years. So realistically, we'd like to see those poor roads in the next 3 to 5 years. We're probably going to be out there working on them and providing patching or resurfacing in its entirety. Current condition, just did a quick pie chart here to kind of give you an idea of where we're at right now. From the 2013 survey to the 2016 survey, our average across the entire network improved by 1 PCI point. So we're currently averaging a 64. That's just based on the bulk roads. It doesn't take into account the mileage so much. So we did make slight improvement on that. The only concern I have is that our big pie slice right here is these are the roads that we need to focus on at this time to prevent them from turning into a situation where they cost us more to fully reconstruct when water and frost damage get into them. For fiscal 18, the upcoming fiscal year, we divided the transportation and the roadside into a couple different things here. We got crack sealing, which is a preventative maintenance measure. We have some East Grand enhancements, which I'm working with L&D on for the east side of town out there. We have sidewalk improvements of $150,000. That'll be broken into 2 components. One will be trip hazard removal, and the second component will be what we're going to be calling the Knowles Road sidewalk connection. It will connect to the village's ComEd Trail along Knowles Road down to Data Drive, at which point the Lake County Forest Preserve District is looking to do an extension into the Rollins Savannah. So we're looking to provide our connection from our pedestrian trail on ComEd all the way into the Rollins Savannah network out there. So that'll be a really neat link to have. The total roadway investment will be about $4.5 million in the upcoming year based on our current plan. On here, we detail the streets that we're looking to do next, I guess it'll be this summer now. As you can see, we're going to be working our way out of Ravinia Woods and wrapping that up, as well as Stonebrook up along Grand Avenue there. On the east side of town, we're starting to pick up some of the small east-west streets. We're going to finish up Magnolia, down to Grand Avenue. We have a couple of industrial streets up there in the industrial park. And we're going to start spending some money out in Providence Oaks. So as I've mentioned in previous years, our goal is to start in the center of a subdivision and work our way out. So we're not driving all of our heavy trucks and machinery on new pavement year after year, which will just basically shorten the lifespan. So what you're going to see here is in 2017, we'll start in Providence Oaks, and then we'll start working our way out in 2018. Looking at construction year 2018. 2019 is the fiscal year for that. Similar type of spending here, crack sealing, East Grand enhancements, additional sidewalks. We don't have any specific projects program for this one at this point. It's just a placeholder at this time, as well as increased investment in the roadways. So construction season 2018, which was fiscal 19, this is where we're looking to go. So again, as I indicated, we're going to work our way out of Providence Oaks, out to Oak Lane Road. We're going to work our way out of Country Trails and finish off Elm and Birch up there. The big one I'm concerned about here is really Almond Road, right there. And my concern with that is that is a $1.2 million roadway repaving that's going to be required. We were originally planning to work on that this year. If you've been out in that area recently, you know that JAWA is plowing in a new water main right now, so we are going to wait until they're done with their project, and then we'll look at fixing the road. So we'll be moving forward with that. So that's a very large, very expensive road, very high traffic. That's one of those where I can't just let it kind of go because of the traffic volumes that are out there. So that is a concern of mine, is what that is actually going to cost us here moving forward. So we are working on some options for that to obtain grant monies, but nothing set in stone at this point for, nothing solid at this point. Moving over to the stormwater management system.
Can I ask you a question? Can you go back to the transportation with all the different colors?
The PCI?
Yeah.
Brian, can you get that there faster?
Okay. There.
Yes.
So Magnolia and Belle Plaine cost us a lot of money because we had to rebuild the road. So that whole area, those roads were put in when it was unincorporated, not to our standards. So do we have to spend more money on those roads to do your maintenance than we would like in Country Trails or in Ravinia and that, where they were built to our standards? Are we spending more per road, per mile or whatever? Okay.
Yes. I consider those to be structurally deficient. So we have to go in there and basically build a whole new roadbed from 2 foot below grade up to the surface.
All right, so when you show a road in Ravinia area where you're just maintaining it, you're just really kind of repaving it, but when you get to the east side, we're going to rebuild all those roads eventually to our standards.
The older roads in town are definitely more expensive to maintain. Currently, I figure and I estimate about $750,000 per mile for just simple resurfacing and minor patching and things of that nature. Once you get into the Magnolia, Belle Plaine type of thing, it's $1 million to $1.2 million per mile. It's significantly more expensive.
Will the side roads be that expensive when you get to them?
Yes.
Okay.
The good thing is the side roads are kind of, there's a lot of them, so there's a lot of options there, and they're not as heavily trafficked. Our priorities were Belle Plaine and Magnolia because they are collector streets. The east-west roads out there are more local streets, so I can stretch those a little bit longer just because the traffic volumes are not so significant out there.
But once we get them all rebuilt and invest the money, then they'll be on a similar schedule to the rest of the town and won't cost as much the next time.
Correct.
So 20 years from now, some board will
Someone else
be
will be
in better
reaping the
shape.
benefits. Yes.
All right.
Can I just ask a question?
Yes.
With the Almond Road, does JAWA help with, since it's the water main going through, do they help with the repaving of Almond at all, or?
To the extent that the place where they're putting the water main in the ground is going to be fully replaced with new asphalt, yes. But Almond Road in itself has been getting rougher and rougher every year. So, again, we were originally intending on doing some work out there, the south half this year. We're deferring on that because they're not out of the way yet. So they're not creating a problem for us, except for the time factor that I got to wait a little longer to resurface the whole road. So the work that they're doing, the pavement is structurally sound. It just needs a new wearing surface, and they'll put in, what they remove, they're going to put back in place, and it'll be fine.
So when we work on it in 2 years, JAWA won't be giving us any money.
That's the bottom line.
Right.
No money for
Yeah.
that.
We're on our own in 2
Maybe out of
years.
there.
Because of
Right.
2 years, and time-wise, you can't
They'll just
tell them not to
they'll
put
just
in it.
repatch
that-
what they tore up now
Yeah,
and then,
that's-
right.
Okay.
You're going to fix the intersection at Data and Almond?
We are looking at doing an intersection improvement, yes.
Okay. David.
Wow. If you would fast forward me.
I've come a long way.
One more? Okay.
All right,
All right, so
thank
the stormwater management system. In the village of Gurnee, we have multiple components to this. We have storm sewer pipe, we have detention basins, lift stations. We have our watershed ordinances, which guide development and detention requirements. And then we also have the Des Plaines River, which requires the village of Gurnee to remain diligent. Our process for the stormwater plan has always been to acquire properties and demolish structures to remove those liabilities from the floodplain. Our approach here is to maintain the existing level of service, with the exception of the Des Plaines River overbank flooding, which is kind of out of our control. Localized flooding is fairly well handled in the community, and we want to stay on top of that. So for fiscal 18, we have a couple components to that. We have a placeholder of $50,000 for floodplain acquisition. At this time, I don't have any specific properties that are on that list for acquisition next year. These are situations where the grant monies kind of come whenever the state and the feds kind of have the money available. So we want to make sure that we're prepared to at least react to one property if necessary.
Have you heard anything on the 2016 ones that you submitted?
One of the grant applications that we had submitted was denied. So that was a batch of, I think, 3 properties. There is another one that's out there that I have not heard back on at this point. So. Lift station maintenance, we're looking to start getting our lift station network on the SCADA system. We have another $50,000 earmarked for drainage improvements. This year we invested very heavily in drainage improvements, so next year is actually going to be a light year for us. There's a couple little things that we want to knock out here and there, storm sewer and ditching and things of that nature. The one that's unique this year will be the bittersweet wetland enhancements. In 2010, the Village of Gurnee cashed in an Army Corps of Engineers letter of credit for wetland enhancements over at Bittersweet because the developer defaulted on their responsibilities on that. Obviously, some changes, significant changes have occurred at Bittersweet since that time, including the Village of Gurnee taking over full, complete ownership of that. We have that money in escrow, and now that the ownership structure is stabilized at this point, we're looking to basically pull that money out of the escrow and reinvest it into wetland enhancements on the golf course. We will have to work with the Lake County as well as the Army Corps of Engineers in order to get that permitted. I don't think there'll be any concerns with that, and it's a little bit of a kicker to help management on the golf course itself. Looking forward into fiscal 19, similar situation. We've increased the lift station investment on that, but again, at this time, there's no specific projects programmed for that. On the water and sewer side, the Village of Gurnee is a utility company. We do have potable water and sanitary sewer to all of the community. Our approach here is to maintain the existing level of service. As Brian alluded to earlier, we have a big project coming on the horizon here in the Knowles Road Water Tower. So that will be, that'll weigh heavily on our budgets and skew the numbers here for a couple of years as we get that going through the system. Typically, we do regular inspection and repair of our sanitary sewer as needed, and we are trying to increase our investment in the water mains. With the rate structure that was approved this last year, we are able to start doing more main replacements than we have in previous years. So for fiscal 18, we have new water and sewer main of about $1.3 million. We are working on some of the water towers. That breaks down as Knowles Road Tower, which is the new water tower out west. We're going to have about $1.2 million invested in that. The majority of that, it's not majority, but about $200,000 of that will be into design engineering services. Another $1 million will be the starter construction for that tower when the time comes. We are looking to demolish the old Grand Water Tower here over by Fire Station number 1. There is an action item later on the agenda tonight for a monopole at that location, so that basically starts that process. And then we also have Northwestern scheduled for routine maintenance this year. On the sewer side, we do spot repairs and lining as necessary. So we have a placeholder there, and then lift station improvements and generator improvements on the sewer side as well. So we are looking to provide additional funding for that. We've had most of our facilities are generator backed up at this point, but some of the water towers do not. So we're looking to get generators installed at all those locations so we can maintain telemetry if the power goes out at those locations.
Scott, if I could just real quick,
Yes.
I just wanted to get in a little bit to kind of how the loan program works with the IEPA for Knowles Road. It is a reimbursement program, so we essentially fill out the application and apply for a not to exceed amount, and then we take as much reimbursement up to that amount as we want. So if we get halfway through fiscal year 19 or even at the end of fiscal year 18, and there's some funds that we can put to lower or minimize that what we actually have outstanding as debt for that, we do not have to take the full amount of that loan. So we can essentially apply for less reimbursement. The current rates right now are about 1.64, I believe is what I saw on their website today. They do predict that ours will be around 1.8.
Thank you, Brian. Community map, kind of dictating where we're going to be going this summer with our water and sewer projects as proposed. We'll be doing, keep doing that. Let's see here. The first project here is on Old Grand Avenue and the Des Plaines River. So the Des Plaines River project, actually, I'll be bringing to you in about 2 weeks for a bid letting. We need to replace the water main underneath the Des Plaines River. It is currently out of service due to 2 breaks on it. We would like to reestablish that connection to get water, into the east side of the community. In addition to that, once we tie into it east of Kilbourne, we propose to extend that out to Fire Station number 1, where again we've had a pretty good break history. We're also proposing to do a roadway improvement project there at Emerald and Old Grand. So prior to putting a new road in, I would like to have new water main underneath the new road so that we don't break the new road with a water main break in the near future. The second location that has actually already been awarded is Greenleaf Street over by the Greenleaf Medical Complex. That one, it's awarded at this point. I don't know that it's going to be spent this year, so I have it in here as kind of an in-betweener because I can bop that one back and forth depending on our needs for the Des Plaines River watershed crossing. The third location would be Magnolia, and that is underneath the new Magnolia reconstruction portion where we're going to finish up that project this year. Once we got into design on that, we realized that the water main is under the pavement. It has a significant break history, and again, I don't want to invest $1 million in new roadway, only to have the water main explode underneath it. And then the last location is actually a new installation. This is based on resident request, and this includes both water and sewer main up on Highland Avenue, just east of Northwestern up there. So at that location, we do have a block in the community where with several houses on it. They do not have access to city water and sewer. Several of the residents have prepaid their frontage fees for that. They have contacted me. They've contacted the mayor in previous correspondence regarding that. So we are proposing to get that installed for them this summer.
All right, on the looking at vehicles and equipment, again, last year we really took some time and updated this, looking out at each piece of vehicle or equipment we have on a 20-year cycle or a 20-year forecast. What that looks like from an inventory standpoint, we have 97 vehicles and 24 pieces of equipment on there with a total replacement value of over $15 million. So you can see it's going to take a significant annual investment to maintain the fleet that we currently have. Last year I talked a little bit about a potential separate fund for vehicle and equipment replacement to smooth the funding year to year. With the onset of the undertaking of replacing the village's financial software, I decided to that would be best to move that off until that's done. This is something I do want to revisit in 2019, though, and what this would do is allow us to almost pre-fund larger pieces of equipment that would come on for 5 years before it's due for replacement. So it smooths out that kind of annual funding that we need for our vehicle equipment. But more to come. I just wanted to revisit that because I did have it in last year as a recommendation, and I do want to come back to it, but post-software conversion. And then on the technology side, Director Velkover does a very detailed long-term plan with stuff that he works on with the departments, and essentially we use that for the technology piece. Spending on the vehicle and equipment side per year, you can see fiscal year 18 is the shaded one there. Average is about $2 to $2.5 million annually. I suspect the drop-off you see in the out years won't drop off quite that drastically when those come into more focus. Obviously, technology changes and with services and things like that. It's hard to predict 5 years out what we will need or what we'll be able to replace or upgrade with technology. But that's what the 5-year plan looks like. For fiscal year 18, total spend is proposed spending is about $2.95 million. Again, $500,000 of that is related to the communications center as a pass-through in the 911 fund. Technology improvements, about $381,000 here. Some network improvements, a document management system. The second piece of the financial software. If you remember, last year we budgeted for the full price of the financial software. We were not going to spend that all in 1 year. The way it'll be implemented over 2 fiscal years, so half of that will actually be next year. We did up it by about $50,000. Right now, we're looking at a scheduling software that was purchased, a company that was purchased by the finance software vendor, that we think will have a pretty big impact and make us significantly more efficient in how we process payroll. So that may come before you here as a recommendation. We're still working through some logistics and features and stuff like that, but you may see that come here before you. And we have a recommendation here fairly quickly. Right now, it would essentially eliminate double entry of time and attendance information and have it flow directly through payroll. Some security improvements at the police department, warning sirens, preemption system, fire grant. The fire department has done an excellent job at chasing those grants down and successful in getting those, and then some SCADA and security improvements out at Public Works. Looking at vehicles and equipment, police department's looking at 5 squads, 2 of which are K-9 vehicles and 2 detective vehicles. The police department rotation is pretty standard and very predictable. On the fire side, an ambulance, a command vehicle, and the chief's vehicle. The ambulance is actually adding to the fleet, a 5th vehicle. That would allow us to take one out of service and still have the full complement of ambulances available to dispatch for service. On the public works side, street side, 2 small dump trucks, 1 large dump truck, a pickup with a service body, a mini excavator, and on the utility side, this is out of water and sewer fund, a meter van, small dump truck, mid-sized dump truck, and a backhoe. Again, these are initial requests. Some of this could be tweaked as we get into the budget season and resources come more into focus. And Scott, take over. Facilities?
Okay. And the last item for tonight is the building and improvements. So the Village of Gurnee operates 5 primary facilities. We have the Village Hall, the police station, Firehouse 1, Firehouse 2, and Public Works facilities. This is the one system that staff is still working on getting a full handle and understanding of. So we don't have a lot of specifics in this one. We are currently working on this as one of the Gurnee Process Innovation Committee items. So we are working towards improving this. So the placeholders that we have in here are, this is something, and this is a work in progress, and we are going to continue working on it. We've broken down each of the facilities into mechanical, electrical, plumbing, MEP, interior work, exterior work, and grounds work. And you'll see how we start distributing that here in the future. This last year, we had budgeted about $175,000, and then I went up and spent $350,000, you'll see. So that was primarily due to the Welton Plaza development. If you'll recall, we had significant savings in our contract with the roadway program this summer, and we made the decision to divert some of that funding to the parking lot at that location to get the parking lot knocked out. That same contractor that did the road job was more than happy to take on that additional work and make the contract whole. So that number is reflected in there, and that's what the big jump was. For next year, the difference is pretty much nil from the current expenditure. For the different facilities, how we anticipate spending the money next year at the Village Hall here, we are starting to looking at roof leaks. The spot on the ceiling tile above me continues to grow there. And so that is one thing we're going to look at doing. We're also looking to remodel this room as well, freshen up with paint, carpet, and some new seats that are not sun faded. At the police station, we have mechanical failures that are continuing to occur at that location. That facility is now 14 years old. It is a 24/7 operation. So the heating and cooling units are always running. The plumbing fixtures are always running. The building is fully occupied all the time. So significant wear and tear there. It needs investment. We also expect a pretty significant expenditure for the comm center build out with the new joint ETSB communication center dispatch center going over there. So we'll see the capital side of things will be merged along with the ETSB funds to build out that comm center. Fire Station 1, we have female facilities that need to be installed at that location. And the PW facility, we have overhead door improvements and then electrical and lighting upgrades at the old building there. The Rudd House, we've finished the replacement of all the windows this last year, so that is done. We now have a very good weather barrier on that. We have a new roof, we have new windows. I've got to do a couple doors, but generally speaking, it's in much better shape than it's been in a long time. We're going to cap that off with some new doors and a fresh coat of paint this year, is my plan. And then that'll be followed by the Welton Plaza development. As you indicated, we just approved the letting for the paver contract, which will basically occur after May 1st. So we'll get the brick pavers installed in the circles, and then we're going to be looking at doing the monument sign-on at that location to finish off the Welton Plaza development.
If I could just add one thing on that slide, and I think, Tom, we can confirm that we did receive award of a grant for some of the lighting upgrades in the buildings out there, so that'll be partially offset by a grant that Public Works was able to secure.
Good. One question, actually two. The Process Improvement Committee for Facilities, I know it did not work out to do shared services with the county for facilities management, but is that one of the things the committee's talking about is third-party facility management?
Yes. In fact, our police department has already started that discussion with the vendor, and we're just getting started with that at this point.
Okay. That's just been one of my thorns. Is Rudd House got a federal designation as a historical location, or?
Not to my knowledge.
Can someone look into getting it like a historical designation for it? Because I think they would entitle us to grant money. No? Why? It's not historical? Or it's not old enough? Go ahead.
We can talk off the record. The property is in the special flood hazard area. It is in the
So it would
floodplain.
never- that's all you gotta say, flood, you're
It's
right.
heavily modified from original, and
Yeah.
then changes like new roofing, new windows, it's very difficult
it
to
out.
do when you do that, yes.
All right. Okay, good, logical answer. Other questions? So I know it's a lot, and it's just very high level, and it'll be very sharply focused when we get to the budget in March, but it kind of gives you an idea where we're going. A lot of work went into this, so thank you, Brian and Scott, and everybody else who contributed.
Okay, well, once you've had some time to look it over in a little more detail, if you've got any questions or concerns, get a hold of me. The timeline for the budget is hoping to have the budget document to you like the last week of February. And then we'll get you in here for one-on-one or two-on-one meetings with us to run through it quick. And then the first budget hearing is on March 6th, I believe. So middle, end of February, get the document to you and go over that, and then we'll have our budget hearing. So it's kind of the pace we're on. So in the next month and a half, you'll have something in front of you.
Okay, any other questions?
Just one thing quick, I was looking through here. Do we, when we close the books, when does the final sales tax revenue from 2016 come in?
From 2016, as far as, so December 2016,
Yep, like to December 31?
we will have the December payment in March. So a couple more months.
Thanks.
All right, we have no other reports, no old business?
Correct.
So we'll move on to new business. The first item is approval of ordinance 2017-01,
01.
authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement not to exceed $64,500 between the Village of Gurnee and CDM Smith related to design engineering services for the Almond Road delivery structure.
Sure. So you had a memo from Scott on this. So as part of the Knowles Road water tower, we need to get the water to the tower. So Jawa runs the main up Almond Road, and the connection point there, where we hook on, we'll have a pumping station there similar to what we have at Cemetery Road, and then we'll also have a delivery structure. So the delivery structure is an underground structure that houses the meter that monitors the amount of water we take from Jawa. So this meter has millions of gallons of water going through it every day, so it's a very expensive piece of equipment. Part of the agreement with Jawa, as far as them giving us a connection point there, is that we're responsible for the delivery structure. And then Jawa actually owns it, same as it is with the delivery structure over at Cemetery Road. So CDM Smith is who Jawa is currently using to design and bid delivery structures for the North and West Group expansions. Jawa's had a long history of working with them, so we reached out to CDM Smith knowing that we would need a delivery structure at this location and solicited a proposal from them. They came in at $64,500. We initially thought that was a little high, so we got a hold of Daryl over at Jawa. His experience with CDM Smith is they bid very conservative and typically come in under the hours that they included in their proposal, and they only bid for the hours they spent on the project. So we're expecting it to come in under that. Also, as I said, CDM Smith, I mean, they're designing and bidding the other delivery structures for the expansion with their 7 in total for the other communities. So we're hoping to take advantage of some of those economies of scale. So we've got $100,000 in this year's budget for design services. So based on Jawa's relationship with CDM Smith and them using them for the expansion of the rest of the Jawa facilities, we're recommending to move forward with them at this not to exceed $64,500. And that would be for the design engineering and then also bidding out the delivery structure for us.
Questions?
Motion to approve.
All right, motion by trustee Wilson,
Second.
second by trustee Hood. Roll call, please, Andy.
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Got to pump the water if you're going to have it. All right, approval of ordinance 2017-02, granting a special use permit pursuant to the Gurnee zoning ordinance for 4548 Old Grand Avenue at Fire Station Number 1 for a monopole.
Yeah, it seems like we've been
I
talking
was
about
going to
this
say,
forever.
Christopher talked
I
about
know.
this like 5 years ago.
Yeah. So everyone knows we're working on getting the tower down at Station 1. Doesn't provide much benefit to us, but it does have
Some cellular carriers on there that do generate revenue for us. And per the lease agreements with them, we've got to provide them someplace to go. So in 2013, the special use permit went through the Planning and Zoning Board and received a favorable recommendation, looking at a 190-foot monopole with a 9-foot lightning rod on top of it. For comparison purposes, the water tower is about 160 feet tall. The new monopole would house 5 carriers and also the village's equipment. So I think we've got 2 on Fire Station 1 right now. That'll be moved over, and then we'll have space for 3 more, and there's a revenue sharing agreement with the current ones that'll be moved over, and then any new ones that the third party that we're contracting with would be able to secure. So with that recent agreement approved with that third-party contractor to construct the tower and move those groups over, we're back to the special use permit again. In 2013, it never moved to the village board level because the contractor we were working with was bought out, and the new company didn't want to move forward with it, so it kind of got put on the back burner. So now, fast forward 3 years, we've got this other company on board. They're ready to move forward with it, so the special use permit was back before the Planning and Zoning Board on November 16th. Again, received a favorable unanimous recommendation. Did have one member of the public there. The homeowner to the east was there. Had concerns about the location of it, the landscaping, and then the ice bridge that goes across, which houses the wires between the shelter and the tower. Regardless, the Planning and Zoning Board felt that those items weren't a detriment on property values or an impact to public safety, and is again forwarding the favorable recommendation. So now it's before you. You'll remember kind of midway through last year, that's when we approved the contract with the Vogue, who's the company that's going to construct the new tower and then move the carriers over and solicit new carriers for us with that revenue sharing agreement. So that's already in place. So this is the special use permit to allow the monopole, like I said, 190 feet tall with a 9-foot lightning rod on top at Fire Station 1.
Questions from the trustees? Monopole looks better than a rusty water tower.
Okay.
Trustee Balmas?
Just, does that building go down too? That's right next, that's going to
Building
stay?
stays. Yeah,
And what is the purpose of that then?
that houses all the cellular equipment for the cell providers.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah,
I misunderstood that part.
yeah, no, that building
I'm
stays, so
expecting
that's
it up
out.
here, not down here.
Yeah, no, I mean, the antennas are up on the tower, but there's a lot more equipment involved with that. So the
Okay.
cables run down the tower, going to the equipment shelter, that's where all the other equipment is located.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
It's raised up off the ground because it's in the floodplain, so
Right.
it all has to be elevated above the floodplain elevation.
Okay.
So if we get more carriers, though, we get more revenue.
Yes,
So
Yep.
we have room for 2 more?
3 additional.
3. But that's that new company we contracted with that will go
Yes.
out and we don't have
And
to hassle with the contract.
Our hope is they have a better contact network to solicit additional antennas or carriers, as well as the water tower in its present state. Each time anybody changes antennas, puts additional equipment up there, they have to structurally reinforce the tower because it's 50-plus years old and was not designed to carry those type of wind loads. So there's an expense to locating on the water tower as it is, where with the monopole it will be pre-designed to carry 5 carriers easily.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by trustee Balmas,
Second.
second by trustee Ross. Roll call, please, Andy.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. It's the end of new business. I'll reopen the floor for public comment. Okay, there's, okay. We do have a short executive session, Brian, if you'd read into the record.
This is exemption C21. The board twice a year reviews past executive minutes, and that would be the purpose for going into executive session tonight.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so I need a motion to go into executive session.
Motion to go into executive session?
Motion by trustee Wilson. It sounded so official.
Second?
Second by trustee Thorstenson. Roll call, please, Andy.
Aye.
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 Yes.
All right, it'll be very short. We'll be right back out, and we're not taking any further action tonight. Okay.